These people have been working on this for years at this point. Clarity is a monster, but if you read it, it actually is pretty clear.
Not a dividend.
It's a tale of two clans.
Now, your losses are on someone else's balance sheet.
Generally speaking, airdrops are kind of pointless anyways.
Unnamed trading firms who are very involved.
I like that ETH is the ultimate Ponzi.
DeFi protocols are the antidote to this problem.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Chopping Block. Every couple of weeks, the four of us get together and give the industry insider perspective on the crypto topics of the day. So quick intros. First, you got Tom, the DeFi maven and master of memes.
Hello, everyone.
Next, we've got Robert, the crypto connoisseur and czar of Superstate.
Good evening.
And we've got Tarun, the Giga Brain and Grand Poobah at Gauntlet.
Yo.
And joining us today, once again, we have Rebecca Rettig, the jurisprudential genius of Jito Labs.
Oh, that was good. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. And I'm Haseeb, the head hype man at Dragonfly. We're early stage investors in crypto, but I want to caveat that nothing we say here is investment advice, legal advice, or even life advice. Please see choppingblock.xyz for more disclosures. So it has been a pretty historic week. We have crypto assets rallying, Bitcoin at 120K, all of a sudden are moving again. You've got Ethereum pumping, you've got Solana pumping. The entire market is on the move suddenly. And a big part of the reason for this has been the success of Crypto Week. So Crypto Week, of course, was the week that Trump declared, or sorry, the GOP declared that they were going to push all of these bills, the three important bills that were in the House, getting through the House and potentially getting on the president's desk. So the first of those three bills was the Genius Act. The Genius Act is the stablecoin bill. It's the one that we've been talking about and being excited about for quite a while. There was a little bit of a showdown in the House where things were getting blocked from some GOP infighting. The president apparently brought them all into a room, yelled at them, and got everybody to flip. And so this was able to make it onto the floor of the House and ultimately passed a very big bipartisan vote, 308 to 122. So more than 2/3 margin that this vote ended up passing. It was then signed by the president on July 18th. So we now have a stablecoin bill. I believe this is basically the first piece of law about crypto in American history. So up till now, we've had nothing. So Congrats, everybody. We've got a stablecoin bill. Now, the important question is, what does that mean? What does this bill do? I think everyone knows that, okay, it's the stablecoin bill. It's exciting, but what are the implications of this bill? So, Rebecca, we have you here to explain to us what the hell is going on. Walk us through high level, what are the important points of this bill for everybody to take home about what changes in stablecoin land?
Great question. So most of the stablecoin issuers to date have registered as what are called money services business and had to go state by state to get money transmission licenses because they've been minting essentially currencies and then being able to mint, redeem, those kinds of things, exchange. So you have to, under current laws, be registered to be a money services business. The Genius Act creates an entirely new regime to be a stablecoin issuer. It will give federal government the oversight over stablecoin issuers. It creates a whole new charter at the OCC, what's called the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, which traditionally regulates banks. But to get an OCC stablecoin charter, you do not necessarily have to be a bank. And there's actually already been a line starting at the OCC to get these charters even before the passage of the Genius Act. It typically applies for 10 billion or more if you're going to have a stablecoin at that level. If you're under 10 billion, in theory, you can register at a state level if a state has a substantially similar regime to the regime set forth at the federal level. The other important piece of Genius is it basically only lets sort of financial services companies or companies in crypto be stablecoin issuers and get this charter. So that was sort of the anti-Meta, anti-Facebook provision so that we wouldn't have these Libra type stablecoins. And it also sets out a few other details, like what you can hold as reserves and things like that. But it doesn't really fundamentally change how stablecoin issuers have been functioning, except creating this whole new federal regime. So it's sort of business as usual, except it really opens the floodgates. And as we've seen from like everything in the news, everyone and their mom is trying to create a stablecoin strategy, whether they be like traditional consumer types of entities or actual banks themselves.
So can you walk through what exactly is this provision that prevents a big tech company from issuing a stablecoin? What stops them from doing that?
Or saying they have a financial subsidiary and doing it anyway.
Sure. I mean, I think I don't remember the exact language of the Genius Act. I'll be on that stops it, but like it's sort of a well-known, well-understood provision that you can't just be like a normal consumer services business, that you really have to be in financial services. I don't think it mandates you being a financial institution under the Bank Secrecy Act, but it's somewhere along those lines.
Okay, because there's been a lot of stories before the passage of the Genius Act. I mean, this provision was contemplated, I think, in the Senate as well. But there's been a lot of news about, Walmart's considering doing one, Amazon's considering doing one, Meta's considering doing one, and one has to imagine, given that we live in this hyper-capitalist world, there will be creative approaches to tech companies finding ways to issue their own stablecoins. What do you think happens? Do you think we're going to see a panoply of tech company-backed stablecoins, or do you think they're going to stay in their lane? We're going to see the banks get involved, but tech companies are out of the game?
I can tell you it's actually happening already, which is people are white labeling stablecoins in many ways and thinking about doing rev shares. That includes, by the way, for any yield bearing, because the Genius Act, one thing I forgot to say is it doesn't allow for yield bearing stablecoins, but there will be plenty of yield bearing type of arrangements like what you see between Circle and Coinbase and things like that. So everybody is trying to put out white label services for stablecoins and become issuers. I think that people who already have OCC charters may also be trying to do this for lots of different entities. So I think we'll see that more than anybody else. It's actually really expensive, I think, to get the stablecoin charter and to become an issuer. So I'm not sure it's even worth it. Plus, as I said, there's already like a lineup for this new charter. So I don't think it would be worth it for like an Amazon or a Walmart or something like that. I think they'll find a good partner. I think they'll white label it. They'll figure out some good rev share and they'll go from there.
So we should expect to see Walmart coin, Amazon coin, Google coin, Apple coin, but they will be issued by somebody who's a stablecoin as a service type, sort of crypto fintech-y type player.
Probably something like that. But I just wonder if we'll even see these special labels on them or not, or if like it's just the way you'll end up paying for things, the way you just tap your phone now to hit your credit card without thinking about it. So, and I just had this interesting discussion last night that Genius is not going to, and stablecoins are not going to put credit card issuers out of business. It's just like I think it's for an absolutely different type of payment, right? So like one, stablecoins don't necessarily give you credit. It's actually like cash. And two, you won't have the ability to claw back in the same way that you do with credit cards, right? Like, so if you have some sort of transaction, you got like defrauded by somebody, you can go to your credit card and say like, stop payment on that, and they'll handle it and they'll deal with all the back end of it. Once you hit something with a stable coin and you've paid. It's like paying with cash. It's going to be really hard to get it back. So I don't think it's going to put credit card businesses out of business either. But I think we'll see it just becoming the back end for payments too. I would say there are other big consumer apps that want to integrate stablecoins because take their fees down by like a significant margin. So certainly it's good for businesses.
I mean, I saw even Western Union, the oldest of the old, today announcing that they were going stablecoin. Explorations. So if they can do it, everyone higher tech than that can do it.
Actually, Western Union makes a lot of sense, though.
Oh, I agree. Oh, there's all the reason in the world for them to do it. I mean, talk about like cutting costs.
Yeah, I think Western Union would make way more sense than like you don't need it for Amazon, right? Like that's just an option or something like that. Western Union, it's literally how people send money to each other.
Tom, Tarun, reactions to Genius Bill getting signed into law?
I will just say I am seeing lots of exactly what Rebecca is saying, where everyone wants to do revenue sharing for yield. That is like, I think the thundering stampede of that started probably like 2 months ago and like has only been growing like crazy.
So good for Gauntlet.
I'm just saying I see a lot of this. I don't know. That's all I'm gonna say. Like, what else?
Okay, so were you campaigning for them to remove the yield from the stablecoins?
No, but like, hey, second order effect consequences, whatever.
Yeah.
I think Bank of America was.
Right, that is true. Tom, what's your take?
I did like Brad Sherman, who's normally extremely lame and curmudgeonly, was going on a little tirade about this, about there being no yield, which I was like, I mean, I think his angle was more just trying to stop the bill, which obviously didn't happen. But it is kind of a bummer that was left out. But you're right that, hey, people have these rev share agreements. Yield will eventually get passed down to stablecoin holders. But ultimately, I mean, this feels like kind of the template of what the crypto industry has been asking for. Just like very clean, very straightforward, clear, bright lines where like what is even required of companies, and like also not overly constraining in the sense that like, yeah, there's still room for innovation, and it doesn't stop new competitors from popping up. So overall, like I think pretty exciting and just kind of hard to believe we've been waiting for this for so many years.
I was just going to say, it's almost anticlimactic. Like, you don't want to be like, it's a nothing burger, because obviously it's a huge deal and a watershed moment. And to your point, like, it's the first real piece of crypto legislation we've ever had. But like, we were ready for this and everybody thought it was going to pass. Like, as I said, people have been getting ready to get their OCC charters for a while. So it's more like we're now doing business as usual, and it's how we should be. And as far as like, I don't think we're going to see a lot of like fancy footwork for people who to try to be their own stablecoin issuers. I do think we'll see fancy footwork, to Tarun's point, about like rev shares and things like that, and how to set that up better.
So actually, one question I have, this is more like a speculative question of like what will happen. Like, there's obviously going to be stablecoin as service providers. There's also going to be these like consortium stablecoins, and then of course there's going to be like the single entity like Circle. How do you view the like breakup? Let's just call it those three categories in like 5 years. Like, what percent of stablecoins will be in each bucket? Like, what are your predictions on that? Because like they all have like kind of slightly different trade-offs, and I don't know how to reason about which one is the most successful.
That's a great question. It goes into also some tea that I was going to bring up too, which was when you watched the signing ceremony that on Friday, Paolo Arduino was literally in the front row, right next to Brian Armstrong, and got like a big shout out from the president. And Paolo, who is the CEO of Tether, just for the listeners. So I thought that was really interesting, given all the back and forth between Circle and Tether. I think Circle and Tether both have a head start, Tarun. And so we will see them keep growing. I think it'll be really hard for people to rival where they are just because of first mover advantage. And then after that, I think we'll see the white label or the, stablecoin as a service providers next. They may have even a bigger rev share or a bigger share of the market than, straight Circle and Tether. And then these consortiums, I don't even know what that looks like or why you would do that, but because it just sounds messy. And to the point everyone's made here, like this bill is pretty easy and straightforward.
Yeah, so we're investors in a company called Agora, which does exactly this. Of course, the OG is Paxos. They've been doing this forever. They of course were behind BUSD and many of the other big stablecoins.
Aren't they behind PayPal too?
Yeah, that's right. They're also behind PayPal. I think the white label stablecoin business is going to be really big because at the end of the day, like the crypto market is pretty saturated, right? It's kind of Tether, USDC, and there's not a lot of room to breathe. Even PayPal USD was trying to do a crypto native go-to-market. And they just weren't able to make that big of headrows, even with showering crypto with a lot of incentives. They just couldn't get that big. Whereas I think if you own your own distribution, you own the actual go-to-market, that feels to me like you can actually get a really significant float if you are taking a different tack and you're targeting a different set of customers. So these more traditional businesses, like whether it's e-commerce or something else, a fintech, them having their own white labeled stablecoin that people within their ecosystem use feels to me like easy way for them to get a significant source of revenue and to improve the UX for their customers and improve settlement times and all of that stuff.
Yeah, and their profits up for their business because they're dealing with less fees.
Exactly. So I do think that's where a lot of this is likely to go, especially given that we've already seen all these stories about Amazon and Meta and all these people considering launching their own stablecoins. And then, of course, there was the bank consortium of JP Morgan, Bank of America, and I think it was Wells Fargo that it was leaked that they were contemplating launching a consortium stablecoin, which, so far we just had JP Morgan do their, deposit token, which I think is much less interesting than an actual stablecoin. But we now have the contours of what a stablecoin would look like. And the stablecoin issuers, they have to comply with the BSA and they have to do AML, but only at the off-ramps and on-ramps. And I think what's very likely is that if the banks come into this game, they're going to be way more conservative. They're going to be, possibly just not even be willing to have anybody hold their token. Because, if you're JP Morgan having some story about, North Korea, did some hack and they have they own our token, would just be such a PR disaster compared to crypto where it's like over Tether, it's like, yeah, that's just Tuesday. Yeah, of course, North Korea has our token.
I mean, if anybody creates a subsidiary to do a stable coin, it'll be a bank, right? Because you don't want to have it in your main bank. I think the thing that everyone keeps getting a little confused about is tokenized bank deposits are not the same as stablecoins. And because they're not one-to-one backed, right? Like think about your tokenized deposits. So this consortium thing that everybody was talking about, I was like, and the banks have been talking about this for a long time. I was at a thing that the Fed put on maybe 2 years ago, like an innovation thing. Every central banker from around the world was there. And a lot of the big banks, who I will keep out of their names out of this, we're talking about tokenized deposits like 2 or 3 years ago. They were ready to do it. And that may be an easy way to do bank transfers and eliminate we have to pay $40 every time you want to wire something. But it's not the same as having a stable coin because that has a very specific reserve requirement.
And one thing I will say that was interesting was there's an announcement today by PNC Bank and Coinbase where you can take your deposits and immediately get instant deposit to Coinbase, where it's almost like a within bank transfer. So I guess Coinbase holds the ACH risk over that time and just fronts you USDC immediately.
I think it's probably just that Coinbase has an account at PNC, right? Wouldn't that just be the logical answer?
Or that, yeah. Well, I guess it depends on how they care about settlement, because I don't know if they were just we make one bank, but whatever. There's some way behind the covers, but you know it's always annoying to transfer to crypto exchanges right now, right? The idea that I can just do instant stablecoin is with low risk is I wonder if that is, that's a counter example to the bank consortium thing, right? Because maybe it's banks are just we're lazy, we'll use someone else's.
Plausible. I mean, the story at least is that they were contemplating a stablecoin. If it in fact is some kind of bank deposit clearing system, that is also significantly less interesting because, again, it doesn't really solve the big problem. It's annoying that bank wires weekends and $40, but the really big problem is how do you create a digital asset that's global and that actually can reliably export the US dollar internationally, right? That is really the bigger story for stablecoins. And so that's why you had, Scott Bessent talking, I think it was just a week and a half ago, where he claimed that stablecoins were likely to hit within 5 years, 3.7 trillion in total stablecoins. And 3.7 trillion from today, which is on the order of 250 billion, that's 70% year-over-year growth. That's an insane growth rate that he's projecting for stablecoins. Now, I don't know if he's just bull posting his own bill, but I think that would mean that stablecoins are eating a significant portion of M2. That's basically full stablecoin maximalism.
Yeah, it also means that Tether and Circle are some of the most profitable companies around.
Tether probably is one of them.
Already.
Tether already is. Yeah, that's right.
Multiply by 13x or whatever.
Yeah.
But actually, I guess what are your predictions? Actually, I feel like I've gone through a bunch of different predictions since the bill passed of stable coins by 2028, total issuance by 2028 or by 2030. And you can tell which banks are bull posting and which ones are bear posting. And it's kind of funny. There's some of the banks are less than $1 trillion, like JP Morgan. And then there's I forget if it was Citi or Standard Chartered was 3 trillion, or 3 to 5 trillion.
Standard Chartered. That's
Standard Chartered.
Standard Chartered.
100% Standard Chartered every time.
So
every time Standard Chartered.
Where do you where are your predictions on total supply 2030?
By when?
Let's
By
do
2030?
2030.
2030. Okay, 5 years. Tarun, you got to go first.
Yeah,
I think 1.5 to 2, that range.
1.5 to 2 trillion. Okay,
yeah.
Robert.
Actually, I'm going to take slightly under. I'm going to go with 1.
1 trillion.
And the reason why I say only 1 trillion is I think, and again, when we did this exact same game a year or two ago with what's your 2024 predictions or 20, whatever it was, my argument and thesis was stablecoins are incredibly attractive right now, but as there are more tokenized assets in general, I think there's more substitutes. And so I think as you play it forward a couple of years, yes, stablecoins are going to grow a huge amount, but there's also going to be just a lot more tokenized assets in general. And people don't hold that much cash. They don't want to hold that much cash. People like holding investments. People like holding things that go up more than cash. And especially if rates are coming back down and Trump is saying we deserve to be at 1% and all of this stuff, I kind of think there's going to be bigger macro headwinds than people expect.
Talk about chilling your own bag. Just kidding.
Yeah.
See, Bear's
Tokenization, baby.
Gauntlet is like
Damn.
stablecoin
Damn.
maximalism. Robert's like, no, stablecoins fucked. It's all
Yeah,
about
yeah.
public
Standard
equities on
Chartered.
chain.
This is
Yeah,
what we got.
exactly.
This is why we bring guests on this show to roast us.
All right, Rebecca, what's your prediction?
I'm about in the same place as Tarun. I actually don't disagree with Robert that like there may be a drop off because people just stop being so like spun up about how exciting this is. And you know, I was with somebody who works at a large financial institution last night, and this person was saying like, "Oh, and we're working on our crypto strategy." I'm like, "It's not crypto strategy anymore. It's just strategy." Kind of to Robert's point, right? Which is just like it's just how we're gonna all deal with everything in the market. And now, yes, go ahead, Robert.
I was going to say, but
And see,
years
you wanna
before
jump in.
that, they were calling it their blockchain strategy, not their
Oh,
crypto
God.
strategy. So
Yeah.
the fact that it's even called a
That's
crypto
true. That's an
strategy,
improvement.
huge.
Yeah,
Big
and not even a digital asset strategy. Although this particular financial institution was not allowed to say crypto until very recently. They had to say digital assets.
Wait, hold
So-
on. You got to name and shame. You got to name and shame.
No way. No way.
Who changed from digital assets to crypto very recently? That's
They all
great.
did.
I don't know.
I mean,
No, most of them are still saying digital assets.
I still feel like I see all these. Whenever I see prospectuses for these treasury companies, they'll say digital asset treasury.
They
company,
always say
and, like,
digital assets. Yeah,
yeah.
100%. No, but nobody's saying crypto on anything that's like a public filing.
At least we got rid of DLT. That's my only.
That's true.
You know,
Oh my god.
saving. Yeah, that was a brief
Tom,
moment.
where are you at?
I wish I
Rebecca's
had more.
concentrating to ruin.
Yeah, data in front of me. I would say actually, if we're targeting 2030, I think this is one of those things that can easily just start accelerating, especially given that, hey, you have network effects around stablecoins as payments. They're accepted by other people. There's sort of legal guardrails around them now. So I don't know. I think something north of 3.7. I don't know, actually. Like
North of 3.7.
Wow.
You realize you don't
Yeah.
have to go that high.
Yeah,
This is-
I am
this is
going to go
bad-
that
this is
high.
bad Jeopardy
posting.
strategy.
I'm max
Tom is
bull
posting live.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I kind of look at other forms of technology adoption, and it's like, yeah, things that inherently have network effects, like a payment network, they accelerate over time. They don't grow linearly. And so I think like if this stuff actually starts to get real momentum, why not?
Yeah, but like I mean, I agree with you, but I think that's probably more true for volume than it is total supply, right? Like in principle, stablecoins don't have to be that much bigger because stablecoins are full reserve, right? So it's pretty hard to actually expand the supply, but it's very easy to increase the velocity of stablecoins. So
Sure.
I think
I think of all the other like fiat currencies out there, people now having a very simple path to swap into dollars, in addition to existing legacy forms of dollars, also converting into stablecoins. And so, like you're right that hey, velocity can increase without supply going up, but I even think about these sort of yield sharing agreements as sort of being a backdoor into hey, maybe you don't actually need to buy a money market fund, like you keep it in whatever Brazilian neobank, and we'll kind of pass you some yield from Circle. And so it just feels just like a total. People sort of talk about leapfrogging, like hey, in China, people didn't get mobile or desktop computers; they just went straight to phones. And this feels like leapfrogging bank accounts for the next generation.
So how long Circle are you right now? Like that's like
Who do you think's been buying?
Trillion is
You
low?
think it got to 50
Okay.
billion by
the whole
itself?
run-up, yeah.
I see. Okay, got it. It was all you. Got it. Okay. Well, so I would place myself. I think I'm probably 1.49 trillion is where I would put it. So I'll bank.
Price is
I'll
Right
bank the
rules, I
delta.
see.
I'm definitely on prices. Yeah, I'm definitely doing prices right. I think stablecoins expand, but I think also velocity increases by quite a lot. And like people at the end of the day, the opportunity costs of stablecoins are significant because although rates are going to go down, I don't think anyone's anticipating rates are going to go down to like where they have been during ZIRP. And so because of that, my guess is that people will just find more efficient ways to move stablecoins around and to like issue, unissue, have them sit in underlying treasuries. Like I think there'll be a lot of fancy things that people do with stablecoins over time. I think like the way in which we think about stablecoins today is relatively simplistic and inefficient because crypto people have very high discount rates.
Tolerance
we
for
really care
pain?
about having money. We
Also
have high tolerance for pain, but
pain.
also we have very, very high needs for liquidity like right now because crypto people are, because we have an extremely high volatility asset. But if you're a fintech and you're just like, well, okay, I can keep the thing in the stable coin and then like Tether's getting most of the yield. Well, the moment that my customer isn't touching this, I can go unissue this, go get the treasury yield myself, and then once I need it, go back. So I think there'll be a lot of things like this that end up equilibrating.
On-demand stablecoin manufacturing.
Redemption and creation is, I believe, the term. Yeah. So, but I don't know. We'll see. I think there will be a lot more here. And probably what that means is that when this game becomes very efficient, right? Of like, oh, my customers' balances are just sitting there. I want to go get all the yield. My guess is that there will be some kind of more complex revenue sharing agreement or profit sharing agreement with Tether or with Circle to just be like, okay, well, don't do that. I'll just share you more of the revenue, and we'll do some calculation based on how long your assets are sitting there, of how much the revenue you get. There'll be something like this, I think, that happens over time.
Yeah. Before we start talking about market structure, Tom, I just want to give you a nod that Genius does use the word distributed ledger, so it's not totally out of vogue.
Shit.
It's baked in the law now. It's baked in the law. That's right.
Never going to die.
Senator wrote
This
that?
mention of DLT is sponsored by Hashgraph. Because I feel like they're the only thing I ever, unfortunately, run into on the internet where they still say distributed ledger.
Hey,
they are also, kind of a distributed ledger, though. They're more distributed ledger and less blockchain. But
yeah.
There we go.
That's right. Don't forget R3. Or what's the name for R3 now?
No, it's R. No, it's R3.
Rebranded.
No, they rebranded. Oh. They rebranded.
Yeah, it's like digital ledger or something like that.
Yeah, that's okay. Anyway, before we totally mess up,
what's the one that's with the C?
Recapitulating their thing.
Corda was their
Canton.
thing.
Canton.
That was
Canton is definitely DLT. That's peak DLT.
Yeah. That was the one that in my head.
That's right. Okay, so speaking of things that start with C, Clarity Act. So let's talk about the second bill. So this bill has not been signed into law, but it has passed the House. Okay, so this is the market structure bill. This is the one that decides how do digital assets get regulated. So if you're Bitcoin, if you're Ethereum, if you're a crypto security, if you're a commodity, if you're some wrapped whatever, we need to create a set of rules that are older than 1933, or sorry, newer than 1933, that explain how all this stuff is supposed to work and who's supposed to regulate what. So this bill basically defines the CFTC versus SEC oversight, disclosures, as well as all the different bits and bobs of regulation that go into how the market is supposed to work going forward. So this also passed the House, 294 to 134. So again, bipartisan margin, roughly 2/3 was in favor of clarity. But there's been more, call it, finagling now that it's gone into the Senate. So the Senate now has to add some stuff onto the bill and retake it to a vote. And there's some significant changes even from the House. Now, this bill is a monster bill. I think very few people have actually read the bill, and certainly very few people understand the bill. But one person who has read the bill is here with us on the show. So, Rebecca, for those who are watching, can you flash your
250 pages of notes?
I read the bill.
250 pages with
I've read the
beautiful
bill
markup.
a couple times because they changed it a few times before it actually got to the House floor for the big vote. But yeah.
Okay, so this is the bill that I think very few people understand. All they know is that crypto people like the bill. But please walk us through what is in this bill, what does it imply, and what are the changes that have recently been proposed in the Senate?
Great question. Okay, so let's take a step back and just talk procedure first, and then I'll get into substance. So as you said, passed the House, and now it is at the Senate. What is now, and the Clarity Act, as it went through the House, has both everything that the SEC is going to do and everything that the CFTC is going to do. And at the House Financial Services, which oversees SEC, and House Ag, which oversees CFTC, worked together. So you have this monster draft, as we talked about. At the Senate, they have now split it apart, where everything with the SEC goes to Senate banking and everything for the CFTC goes to Ag. We have not seen the Ag draft yet. At the time of recording, the Senate banking put out their draft or their revised draft. We'll get into what that says and how it's different from what's in Clarity 2. But we probably won't see a fully harmonized bill until after House Ag puts out their draft, which probably won't be until the end of the August recess, if I had to guess. But we'll see. So they're working on it separately. I'm sure they're talking to each other, but they really are doing this separately. It's much more common in the Senate for everybody to sort of stay in their lanes and handle what they're going to handle. And I would say it's also pretty historic that the House worked so closely together. So kudos to everybody who did that. And Clarity is the successor to Fit. So like these people have been working on this for years at this point. Clarity is a monster, but if you read it, it actually is pretty clear.
It provides clarity.
So it does. Okay, so it has a whole host of definitions.
Can I ask one? What does clarity stand for?
Oh, the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act of 2025. And then it doesn't have the like CLART.
What?
Like,
okay.
There's no backronym.
There's no backronym. I thought there was.
Right, we got to work on that for the
How about
Senate
this?
version.
Coins languish always. Return.
Wait, hold on. I don't like that. I don't like where this is going. I don't like where this is going.
Technology.
What?
Definitely not coins languish always. We're not doing
Technology.
that.
All right, yeah, bad background. Bad background.
No.
All
I
right,
do
this
like
is
the
bad juju.
acronym for genius, though. That was pretty funny. And that at the signing, Trump said the bill was named after me on Genius. I don't know if you guys heard that, but
We talked about that on
But
the
it was,
Stable
right?
Genius.
Because we have Stable Act and the Genius Act.
Yeah.
I think that was true.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so the Clarity Act starts out with a ton of definitions, not distributed ledger. They actually define a blockchain, and they define it in a way that now we can see running through all the bills. They also define blockchain protocol, which is the source code of a blockchain. They talk about a blockchain system, which is a blockchain together with its protocol, or a blockchain application, so like a dApp kind of. So they get in, it's pretty tech heavy. They talk about a decentralized governance system. The most interesting thing about that is it does talk about what we think of as a DAO, but it doesn't actually require anything about the decentralized governance system to be on chain. And they recognize that a governance system could have a entity around it, in a nod to one of your prior episodes where you've talked about Dunas and Borgs and things like that. I think this is meant to recognize.
By the way, was that a big hit in the crypto legal community?
I was like, if I could have called into this show to give you all the tea.
Damn,
Okay,
we
good
should
to
have
hear
call-ins.
We should. We
Yeah.
have Twitter call-ins. Tweet it.
Yeah, if you tweeted us when we're recording, we'll allow you.
Yeah, after this, we can get into who was right and who was wrong on that. But I had lots of feels on that discussion.
Keep going.
Okay, most importantly to most of you guys and our listeners, or your listeners, there is importantly a digital commodity related person. So that's somebody who's a promoter, a senior employee, if you're an advisor or something like that, a consultant, whatever you want to do, or you have the right to acquire 1% or more of the total outstanding units of the digital commodity, so the token. So that's really important. And they also talk about a digital commodity affiliated person, which is somebody who acquires or has the right to acquire 5% or more of the total outstanding units, or is a founder, or is an executive or an officer, director, general partner. It also scopes in senior employees to these types of definitions because it's important, because later it puts restrictions on who can sell of digital commodity affiliated persons or related persons, what types of disclosures, how frequently you can sell, how much you can sell in any 12-year period. And so those are actually really important definitions that we all should care about. So it won't hit like devs who are getting tokens, but it will definitely hit founders. It'll hit like anybody who's an executive, any of your board members. So I think those are things that we'll get there in a second. The other really important, two other important definitions. One is an end user distribution. It basically refers to what we think of as an airdrop, but it also scopes in staking a little bit as well, like that you could be getting a distribution from participating in a consensus mechanism. And then the other important thing is it talks about a mature blockchain system, because in theory, you could get out of all the disclosure requirements if your blockchain gets certified as mature, or your blockchain system, right, which could be a protocol, gets certified as mature. So that's really big. It also has a definition of decentralized finance trading protocol and decentralized finance messaging system. The decentralized finance messaging system is really about front ends. It also would include wallets and stuff like that. So it goes through like these really detailed technical explanations. And I have to be honest, they do a pretty good job of it, honestly. Like, could I nitpick words here and there? And did I in like former drafts? I did. but they actually took really good technical feedback as well. So these technical definitions are pretty spot on. So that's the first part of it. So then what do? They talk about what everybody cares about. How do you get to sell tokens? They add a new, like in a sort of a pre-sale, they add a new exemption to the securities laws, right? So everybody here and a lot of the listeners are like, oh, it was a Reg D, it was a Reg A, we did a crowd fund, whatever it may be. Those are all exemptions to the traditional securities laws and what most projects have used in order to be able to sell to VCs. But this new exemption, which I'll call 4A8, because that's what you appended onto in the securities laws, allows for projects to sell essentially investment contracts. And you can only sell up to $50 million worth. And you're selling units of a digital commodity. So it does allow for that, which I think is really important. We'll get into other things. It requires you to be organized in the US, and it doesn't allow SPACs to do it. So I don't know where we fall on the treasury company. It also says you can't be an investment company. So it exempts who can actually do that. So it's really meant to allow people to engage in.
So these are basically ICOs.
Pre-sales. Yeah.
This is the ICO clause. Okay, so 50 million, so no pumped out fund, $1 billion raises, but you're in the clear to sell an investment contract to retail.
Pumped up fund could probably do it if it didn't touch the U.S. I don't think they could have sold $1 billion if they didn't touch U.S.
This just
VCs.
touches Americans. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So 50 million to Americans.
Yeah. And then you get the exemption. And though this is a really important part, you can't just ICO it and the ICOs from the 2017 where you had ICO and never build anything. You either have to have what's called a mature blockchain system, and we'll get into that in a second, or certify that it will be mature within 4 years of the date of the sale. And then if it's not, there are a bunch of consequences, but it's really meant to sell tokens for legitimate projects. So a real ICO, something like that.
Sure. Okay.
So that's on the selling of the tokens. I'll get there in a sec. There are a few other things that I think are really important. So I said there are these really good technical definitions. The other thing that's somewhat complicated and I have lots of feels about is that it lets the SEC and the CFTC do joint rulemaking around things like what does blockchain mean? What is a decentralized finance messaging system? What is a decentralized finance trading protocol? I don't love that. Mostly because it feels really difficult to have these financial, and maybe it's just having been in the industry so long and feeling a little hangover from all the regulation by enforcement. But I don't love the idea of extensive rulemaking by financial regulators on technical topics. But at the end of the bill, they do create a new innovation arm of the SEC they do call it FinHub, which we've had before, but they basically say it's new. So I think they tried to do away with the old FinHub because the old FinHub, at least in the crypto legal community, is known for come in and talk to us and we'll give you guidance, and you'd go in and then you'd get a subpoena really shortly thereafter. So I think they're reconstituting it. What they do codify into law is Lab CFTC, which is their innovation arm, which has always had sort of a good vibe about it. I think it was actually established under Tim Nassad way back in the day. So they hopefully those types of entities.
So Rebecca, walk us through the selling restrictions. What's going on there?
Okay.
What's the restrictions?
And how does it relate to
founders?
venture funds?
Specifically,
I thought it's not legal advice. Nothing I say is legal advice.
Nothing here is legal advice or life advice. Please see choppingblock.xytc for more disclosures.
I mean, life advice I might give people, but this is not life advice. So, okay. So on there are big selling restrictions, and it's interesting because nobody's been talking about them. And I'm this is the thing that I feel like the industry would sort of have the most feels about. So if you are a digital commodity related person, you can sell, but you have to hold for at least 12 months. And the aggregate amount of the units of the digital commodity offered or sold by the related person or affiliated person in any 12-month period, or the commission can change the timeline, has to be not less than 5% or greater than 20% of the total units of the digital commodity acquired directly from the issuer. So during a 1-year period, you're pretty, I know. This is actually the
not
most...
less than 5, wait.
Yeah.
I know, so this
you have to
part
sell
I actually...
at least 5%, but you can't sell more than 20%.
Well, if you
so you
are...
can't hodl? Wait, what?
No. You don't have to sell.
You can't sell 1%.
Well, no. Then there's another
they
section.
say you can't sell. Okay, hold on. I'm very confused.
It's prior to it being a mature blockchain. So it wants
prior to it being a mature blockchain. I see.
When it's still like a private company kind of thing.
When it's still a little baby, when it's a sapling.
Yeah. But I as I was rereading this to talk for today, I did make myself a note for you guys, which says going to hit current bags.
That's a note for all the listeners.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Because yes, go ahead.
No. Finish your thought.
Yeah, so I find the holding restrictions the most confusing on this, but then it also and you're going to have to make disclosures when you sell to the SEC around all of this.
Are these public disclosures or just to the SEC?
I mean, I don't know why they'd be private. I mean, a lot of these types of disclosures are public.
Do you think they'll make a new form, like Form 7, and they'll be like, that's your crypto form?
Yes, they will do a new, I don't know why they wouldn't do a new form, because they're going to do a whole new form for disclosures around mature blockchains and for anybody who's selling under this 4A8 exemption. So I do think that's a little confusing.
Okay, so to summarize, founders, VCs, insiders, promoters, advisors, they are all enjoined from being able to freely sell dump tokens on the open market any sooner than 1 year. And if the blockchain is not a mature blockchain, then they got to dribble it out slowly, basically, is kind of the thing. And they got to file these forms with the SEC to tell the whole world, hey, guess what? I'm dumping, like the end. Okay, so tell us then about what is a mature blockchain? How is that certified? Who certifies it? What's the mechanism there?
Yeah, so, okay, a mature blockchain, for a while I thought, is this just the flip side of this decentralization test, which was in FIT? And the decentralization test in FIT was not great because it was like based on things like, are you marketing? Are you doing GitHub commits? And I was like, we should not be regulating that type of activity under our financial laws. The mature blockchain system goes to, it actually talks about or thinks about common control or control of all different parts of the system. And so it goes through a lot of, it has to be an impartial system. It has to be a programmatic system. The system has to be fully functional. You have to have open source code. Like those are really, I think, good things.
The whole thing has to be open source.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So
I know.
Hyperliquid could not be a decentralized or a mature blockchain.
Yeah. I mean, I was actually thinking a little bit about Hyperliquid because we're going to get into some of the DeFi exemptions in a second in this bill. And I don't think Hyperliquid would get any of those for a variety of different reasons. But also because this bill, this is the important part, this bill doesn't touch derivatives. So it's not going to talk about perps. It's not going to talk about swaps, futures, none of that stuff. So you should not think of this bill as regulating those types of things. Those types of things are still dealt with by the Commodity Exchange Act. So if you are building like a DeFi derivatives protocol, you should not be basing everything you do on Clarity, the draft of it or otherwise. So you can go certify to the SEC that this is a mature blockchain system, as can like a digital commodity related person or affiliated person or anything like that. The SEC can hold it up, can say we don't agree with you. If you file an appeal of the SEC's decision, it actually has to be in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of D.C., which is where Grayscale won its case against the SEC. So they do have a whole system about how to certify you're a mature blockchain. The really difficult part about maturity is even if you, let's say, hit maturity, if you're still providing if you're still participating materially in the system, you may not get out of having to file disclosures. And so it's somebody called these the Hotel California disclosures, because you can never get out of the disclosure regime that's in Clarity. It's very hard to get out. You would basically have to stop contributing to the blockchain system, blockchain protocol entirely. And also you have to hit maturity. So it's very hard of having to disclose. Now, once you hit maturity, your disclosures drop off a little bit, but not entirely.
So what happens to the, call it 20,000 different crypto projects that already exist, right? Does the maturity question start when the bill is potentially signed into law and then 20,000 projects all race to the SEC and start, filing forms? Is it backwards looking at all? How does it treat this?
There is so much rulemaking in here, which is interesting. And we should talk about how that will stand up given the prior decision from the Supreme Court on Loper Bright, which took out Chevron deference, which I think you talked about ages ago. But there's a lot of rulemaking in here. So it's a little unclear exactly what will happen to existing projects. But yeah, I mean, I think that there will be the backwards equivalent of a bank run, right? Everyone's going to be coming in to get what they want. But I also, to your point, Robert, like given all the projects out there, I don't know how you're going to enforce against all these projects if somebody's not coming in to certify. So it will be very hard to do this in practice. And I was thinking about all the rulemaking that's required. Some happen in 90 days, some happen in 270 days, some happen within a year. I mean, there's lots of rulemaking in here. I just don't even think a lot of these agencies have the resources right now to undertake what this bill requires in the timeline that it requires. You're going to have to hire a lot of people, which is like...
Yeah, so take us through the DeFi side. What does Clarity impose onto DeFi?
Great question. Clarity is actually pretty good on DeFi. So there are DeFi activity exemptions under we call them Section 309 and 409. 309 applies to the securities side, and 409 applies to the commodities side of things. So the exclusion for decentralized finance activities basically says compiling network transactions or relaying, searching, sequencing, validating, or acting in a similar capacity. So like just technical stuff, providing computational work, that's like being a miner, providing a user interface that enables a user to read and access data, developing, publishing, constituting, or otherwise distributing blockchain systems. So just like being a coder, doing the same thing for a front end, deploying or creating hardware or software, including wallets or other systems. So it's like pretty good. The interesting thing, and with a little T on this, so that's like the security side. It's almost identical under 409, the commodity side. However, and this has been all over Twitter, so I don't know if everybody's seen it, but there were some very large traditional financial players who were very worried about DeFi derivatives having a huge exemption under 409. And so they added some language in at the last minute to say, well, these exemptions only apply to spot crypto on DeFi, right? Not for DeFi derivatives, because these financial players are worried about the hyperliquids of the world coming and eating their lunch. I know, but
interesting.
Look, I think I know, but I think it goes back to sort of what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. Like, I think there is a real recognition that on-chain is a real part of financial services strategy going forward. And just like we saw with a lot of the big banks, including JP Morgan, flooding crypto for so long, they were just trying to slow us all down, right? So they could catch up. And I think that this is the same type of thing, which is the traditional players want to keep their moats, and they're worried that somebody like a Hyperliquid doesn't have a moat. And I mean, doesn't have the same type of restrictions they do, and so can blow through their moat.
Makes sense.
So 409 is the same, lots of exemptions, but only for spot.
Got it. So that's the kind of state of the bill, sort of a snapshot of what's going on right now. The bill is likely to change. Oh, go ahead.
Wait, one really important thing, but probably people don't care as much about it. It creates all new categories of registrants for spot crypto. So digital commodities dealers, digital commodities brokers, and digital commodities exchanges, and lets them register with the CFTC to be able to allow for spot crypto trading in all sorts of ways for market makers, for exchanges like Coinbase, and things like that. So that's really important. And then it allows on the SEC side for ATSs or other exchanges to have payment stablecoins on them, potentially have spot crypto, and also trade securities. And then do some notice registration to the CFTC. So the intermediaries have a lot of regulation here too.
So these are the clear rules for the Coinbases, the Krakens, and so on of the world that they've been complaining about of like, hey, we don't know what we're supposed to do in order to be legally compliant. This is the answer.
Yeah, and the Wintermutes of the world too.
And the Wintermutes of the world. So help us understand from here what happens next on Clarity before it gets actually signed into law, assuming that it does.
Yeah. So this morning, the Senate Banking Committee put out their own draft. There's a little similarity to Clarity, but not on the security side, but not much. It's much shorter. It's 35 pages. It only deals with selling of tokens and how to deal with illicit finance And that I think is very interesting from the Senate banking side. And then, as I said, Senate Ag is going to put out their own draft of what happens on the CFTC side. And so we'll see that. And then everybody is going to, behind the scenes, give all sorts of comments. They'll scream about it on Twitter a little bit. And then hopefully we'll see a harmonized draft when it gets to the Senate floor.
So goes to Senate floor, goes to a vote, goes back to the House. House okays it, then it goes to the president. And
Yeah, I don't think
timeline?
it'll be that simple, but yeah.
Okay.
Oh, timeline? Timeline, maybe end of the year. I don't think that's the desired timeline, but I think that's the realistic timeline given everything that has to get done.
So, I mean, I've been hearing from people that if it takes end of the year, it's not going to happen this session.
Possibly.
That's your base case?
Handicap this for us. What are the odds that something gets done this year? And what are the odds that if it doesn't get done this year, it gets done in the next session?
I will say that David Sachs and Bo Hines have been really good about doing a lot of work behind the scenes to really make clear that this is a huge priority, and with a lot of industry players and support and things like that. I mean, to Haseeb's point, the fact that Clarity passed out of the House with this massive bipartisan majority means that people understand this needs to get done. I just think that politics can be complicated, and the Senate is its own very complicated beast. And what we've seen coming out of the Senate is these like seriatim bills here and there, like a little bit from Senate banking, a little bit from ag, and then another one from ag, and then a different draft, right? And so the difference is that in the House, they've been working together, as I said, for years to try to get this done. And I would say clarity is the best we've seen. And I hope just of any like holistic bill, I'm a little worried saying that because I'm sure everyone in crypto is going to come snipe at me on Twitter. So apologies, but it's pretty good. Like, can it be improved on the margins? Yes, of course, everything can. And as I said, I don't love all
Rebecca,
the rulemaking.
Give us your odds. Passes this year, and if it doesn't pass this year, passes next year.
Okay, passes this year is 60%.
60%. Okay, if it doesn't pass this year, what's your odds it passes next year?
That's actually really tough. My gut says 45, that if it doesn't get done this year, that's what will happen next year. But crypto is so unpredictable. But I think it's going to be hard because people will start taking their eye off. Crypto won't take their eye off the ball, but I do think that there's going to be so much else going on in the world that people may have taken their eye off the ball a little bit.
Right.
And actually, one question for you, as you've worked at a number of DeFi protocols, but also now you spend a lot of time in staking land. What are like the biggest consequences that impact you the most of these bills?
Well, for Jito, I don't think there's Jito Labs. Like, we're software developers, so the DeFi exemptions are actually pretty important to us because we just write code and deploy it for the most part, or engage in like computational work or things like that, which you could see with our announcement on the new product we put out. But so those are really important exemptions. And the thing about the Senate draft that came out today is it doesn't touch DeFi at all. They put out a request for information simultaneously with it that asked people, how should DeFi be regulated? And they're going to take feedback and maybe include something into like the next draft of it. But I do think making sure that true DeFi work is protected is one of the most important things we need to do in these bills.
Do you think this is like sufficiently good? Yeah, to sort of reshore, issuance and like, or is this going to be sort of like the bit license where it's like, okay, in theory, there is a set of regulations you can follow, but they're just so onerous, people say, fuck it, and they're just like not even going to bother. Like, do you think teams are actually going to get serious about bringing things back on shore?
I think if you have no way to get out of these disclosure requirements because maturity and material substantial involvement means you can never stop disclosing, I think you're right that it's going to be a huge problem. So I think we need to have a very clear way to get out of disclosure land and clarity. And then I think it will, because it like does protect a lot of the things we care about. And look, on some level, we should know if people are dumping on retail. Like, I know it's something we've all come to accept in the industry and that it just happens, but it's not really how like most markets work.
So you get out of the disclosure regime by being certified by the SEC as being mature?
No, and stopping contributing to the system entirely. It's very hard to get out. Very, very hard to get out.
Okay. So the disclosure regime, I sort of took a look at it. It looks less onerous than the Blockworks disclosures token transparency thing. Was that your read as well? Is that like, it seems like kind of like, oh, you have to like tell us what you plan to do, and you have to tell us if you sold tokens. And it's just like kind of general, almost like just like forward looking statements or something about like, what's the vibe of what you plan to do with this blockchain?
Yes, but you're going to have rulemaking around it. So this gives the contours.
So there's more that's going to be filled in. Okay, I see. Okay, so the idea is that there's not a lot of detail yet, but those details are going to be filled in when the SEC or CFTC get to it. Okay.
Yeah, and I just think, quite frankly, in the Senate draft and in clarity, I think the disclosure regime makes some sense. Both of them do. Like they're much more tailored to how we all do things and what we care about for these blockchain systems than current securities laws.
Okay. Well, this is a very helpful preview of what's coming down the pike. For any of you who did not read the bill, which I think is like 99.9% of us, appreciate the cliff notes and you helping us cheat on our homework. But once this does come into law, we're going to do another deep dive and see, you know, what's changed between now and the present moment, because I'm sure, as with all these bills, there's a lot more that ends up getting left on the cutting room floor. So there's one more story I wanted to get to, which of course actually connects to Jito, which is BAM. So BAM stands for the Block Assembly Marketplace. It's a big upgrade that is happening on Solana. And BAM is basically this new block, how should I describe it? An execution engine that basically decides the way that blocks are assembled using Jito, instead of being the normal old way, which is that, blocks just come into, or transactions just go into a leader. The leader decides what the hell they want to do. Now, in order to run the Jito engine, you need a trusted execution environment, also known as a TEE. This is a computer that basically you can't look inside. It encrypts what's inside of it. And even if you own the TE, you cannot go in and mess with it. And so this allows you to set programmable rules about transaction sequencing, fees, bundling. It allows you to basically say in an enforceable way that I do not want to get sandwiched. So sandwiching, of course, is when, you send a transaction, gets front run, back run, and the person who's, as a searcher or whatever is going in and taking advantage of your transaction. And the idea is that using BAM, it is now going to be much more difficult for users to get sandwiched if they're using Solana or using a Jito leader. Did I summarize that correctly? Anything that I got wrong there?
Essentially. So the validators are still going to do what the validators have always done. They just need to download a new client when they get ready to start BAM. And then the BAM nodes sort of run alongside the validators. You're right about that trusted execution environments. Yes, it will mitigate MEV. And I was thinking about your latest post on MEV and Jito and Solana from like a week ago, Haseeb, which was basically like, this is a cat and mouse game. Like, fine, you guys created something new, and now there are all these new different ways to run these crazy sandwich attacks and stuff like this. But this does, yes, mitigates MEV. But the other thing that it really does is, this goes to institutions and everyone aping in, is it will give you privacy over the sequencing of your transactions. And then it also will give you this transparency, because you have to, the BAM nodes will put out attestations that they were sequenced in the way that they were meant to be sequenced, essentially. So it is like this, it's an upgrade to Solana for sure. And it's certainly an upgrade to the Jito block engine, and it's meant to help you land your transactions. I think the other thing I'd say is, we think about MEV being all about price and you getting sort of your unexpected things happening to your transactions. I think the other piece of it that's really important is that the way you land transactions isn't only about price. It's right about speed, about finality, and about certainty. And so that's what this is supposed to do for Solana as well.
What do you think happens to the total Jito staking yield after BAM?
But I mean, the Jito stake pool is separate from this. I think there is probably more interest in many ways. And I think the other interesting part about the BAM announcement that people may have not focused on, because it came lower down in the blog, is that Labs and Foundation are working on a Jito improvement proposal that will take all the block engine and BAM fees and move them to the DAO. So I think that's a big
spicy.
Yeah.
Also the kind of being able to implement sort of like Hyperliquid style cancel sequencing and stuff, I think was like sort of, I think the headline phrase that I think the average user of an on-chain protocol probably thinks about the most.
Yeah.
And actually, so also, yeah, I guess disclosure, Robert and I are Jito investors, but
Robot Ventures is a Jito
Robot
investor.
Ventures is, yeah.
Okay. So you're kind of my bosses.
In a way, very
I don't think it
indirectly.
works.
We brought you on the show for accountability.
This is your performance review right now.
Yeah.
We brought a stack of papers that we've marked up of
250 pages.
Okay.
Yeah.
How I guess like one question that I didn't totally get is like, what's the extra overhead, or like, is it very close to the current block engine, and like where does it put Solana relative to kind of competitors?
In terms of speed?
Yeah, in terms of like, there is some extra overhead for doing this in TD. I think like this is, I'm just kind of curious, like what is sort of the performance benchmarks?
It's still on testnet, so I don't know if we have like the perfect benchmark to how fast you can land transactions now. And the overhead is going to be on the BAM nodes. It won't be on validators. So
okay. That's
so validators have to match what the BAM nodes would do. Otherwise, something bad happens. Like they get slashed or something.
Slashed.
Okay.
Well, there's no slashing on Solana yet.
Yeah.
It's that they probably could get blacklisted or things like that.
Oh, of course, right.
They get shunned.
They get shunned, right? That's right. Is it basically like all validators on Solana are running Jito client now?
94%
94%
are running the current Jito client, because the block engine, so that's like the predecessor to BAM, which is still up and running, does all the sequencing of the transactions and helps you land faster and things like that.
Got it. Okay. So brass tacks for a user, if I'm in the trenches and I'm trading some meme coin, the likelihood that I get sandwiched now is lower if it's a Jito client running the validator at the moment I send a transaction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully.
That sounds like a good thing. Yeah. Hopefully. Hopefully.
That's the plan.
Yeah. Okay. What a show of confidence. Thank you, Rebecca.
No, I mean, that's the plan behind all of this.
Okay. The answer is yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent.
Well, no, wait. Because I'm a lawyer, I just want to say, like, there's no guarantee that, and it goes to your tweet, right? Like, it's not sandwiching is gone, front running is gone, back running is gone.
So
you're going to have.
It's worth actually me elaborating what I tweeted about. So there's there's an MEV kind of state monthly report that I was reading that talked about this concept of wide sandwiches or blind sandwiches. And so a normal sandwich attack, basically what you do is you take a transaction that somebody's issuing and you bundle it such that your transaction front runs them, their transaction goes right after you, and then you back run them. Basically, you sell out of whatever asset they pumped up, all in an atomic bundle. Okay, that's called a sandwich because they're transactions in the middle of your buy and your sell. And if you do that programmatically, you'll make money with basically zero risk. And so Jito has a feature now that says, I'm sending this transaction, don't sandwich me, bro. And this don't sandwich me, bro flag prevents Jito from putting your transaction into a bundle with a before and after sandwich type thing. But what you can do is you can say, oh, well, I know you're making this trade. I'm going to take the risk that I might not be atomically stuffed before and after you, but I probably will be. And so they front run you, your transaction goes in, and they try to get the back run just in time before anyone else gets in there and messes with them. And so this is called a wide sandwich or a blind sandwich. And this apparently is like growing like gangbusters as the natural evolution to sandwiching, is that if normal sandwiching doesn't work, you can go blind, as they say. It's not a great slogan, but this is, I think, what all these front runners are now adapting. And I think it went from 1% of sandwiches were blind to now 37% in the span of just a few months.
I mean, to be fair, this is like normal trading.
Exactly. This is natural evolution.
This is like normal stat arb. Yeah, like me guessing, taking some risk. But I mean, the point is that the sandwich has to take risk to do it, right? So it's like, it's a little more fair in that way.
Yeah, a little bit. I think that's what BAM is meant to combat against. And to your point, like what happens to the validators, I think now the validator bad behavior takes a little while to detect. And I think with something like BAM, the validator bad behavior will be almost instantaneous because it'll be transparent, right? And so there's this, I was looking at the the press release and stuff like that, I'm like, it's so strange to say privacy and transparency, but like, this is one of the things that's meant to like solve our, can your financial transactions be private kind of thing. And I think it'll be really good for institutions.
So on, Tarun, you were very bearish fair sequencing. This sounds very fair sequencing-y.
No. So I was bearish the idea that you can reduce everything, which is like this. The statistical things are always still going to exist. You can't remove them. That was sort of what my paper proved. Is that there's
but the concept of fair sequencing as laid out here,
fair sequencing in distributed systems means something where like under no sequence can I profitably do a strategy, right? That's kind of the consensus version of this, and like the thing I worked on was like showing that you can't remove everything. You can make it harder like by doing this, but you can't remove everything perfectly.
Right. But this does basically enforce first come first serve transaction ordering.
I mean, I don't think it changes the way transactions get ordered on Solana, but to the point that you were sort of talking about before, you can actually put specific rules in place via these plugins and stuff like that. So apps can actually build the way that their transactions get sequenced too. Pretty cool, but heavy tech. The TLDR is probably more fair, sorry, Tarun, but not perfect. And probably will enforce better validator behavior long-term. And so good long-term for the Solana ecosystem.
No, I mean, the reason I kind of went on this tirade and wrote this paper a long time ago, 3 years ago, whatever, was like, there were all these L1s that were like launching being like, we have fair sequencing. You'll never get sandwiched in any way, shape, or form. And it was like, no, that's an impossible guarantee. You can't really offer that perfectly.
Then they had bad lawyers, because if anyone's making guarantees, especially on sandwiching,
I don't know how many of those L1s are even like existing worth mentioning.
Probably not. Canton.
Okay, well, with that, we have to wrap. Rebecca, thank you so much for the homework assignment. We all now have to go and read our 250 pages, mark it all up.
Rebecca just read it
we'll
for
be back.
us.
I did it for you. That was
we got another version of the bill coming. We got more stuff to read.
No, but that's like 50 pages. You know,
why would I not just ask
a
language model? Why would I go read this thing?
Because they're going to hallucinate.
This is real intelligence.
Look at that face Rebecca just
intelligence.
made. Did you see that face Rebecca just made when you said that?
Yeah.
I'm not using it for litigation. I'm just trying to understand what it says.
I'm not using it for litigation. Did it tell you about the lockups when you did it? It didn't.
It said VCs can't dump is what it said.
That's right.
Did it? I don't think so.
No, it didn't.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think Tarun, it's your performance review is coming next week. All right. With that, we're going to wrap. Thanks, everybody.
See ya.